Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This will be the last one I put online today. And this game was played on the Thursday that's just been. I was up against somebody who's around, I think, 2,100 in the over the board ratings, but then in the sort of online ratings they don't play as much, so they're only rated 1,800. I was black, and this is an interesting match with b3 being played, and I try to occupy the centre of the board very early on, attempting to take the knight and force a doubling of white's pawns. e3 so that they can take back with the queen. Knight d7. What that will do is it will let me play the move e5. And the reason I don't put it on c6 is that generally I like the knights guarding each other on f6 and d7. There are lots and lots of positions where that occurs. For example, the queen's pawn opening, with black playing d5 and e6, knight f7, knight b d7, queen's gambit declined. And also I might want to move the c pawn later as well. So it does multiple things. Bishop b2 attacking the e5 pawn, so I defend it. Then d4. Now I could take this pawn. I'm sure it's a move. I could even take the knight and then push e3 if they take back with the bishop. E4 I mean, if they push back with the bishop. But instead I chose e4 straight away. That way there's no imbalance of the pieces on the board. We both have exchanged off a bishop, rather than me taking a bishop, knight losing a bishop. And here I'm not entirely sure if my move is correct, but I thought knight g f6 made sense. It prevented white attacking me with queen g4. It developed a piece and also prepares for castling, depending on how white plays from here. c4. So my moving of the c pawn is now available with c6. It's almost like a reversed, well, not reversed, but it's a bit like a French defense almost, with white being the one playing the black side of a French and black playing the white side of a French. But with a few small differences. For example, there's not usually a knight in the centre for in this position for white. If it was a reversed French, normally this knight would be on d2. But castles. And now my thinking was I want to come up with a plan, to paraphrase I think Hamlet, the plan's the thing. But I also need to develop pieces in some way in the next couple of turns. So what would you play as black? I think queen c7 might not be the strongest move, even though it does aim at the knight and later on the pawn on h2. Because there might be problems where white has a rook on the c-file and they open up lines on your queen. But I'm sure it's still valid. Queen e7 was one of my thoughts, to attack the knight 3 times and also stop bishop a3, which would trade off the bishops, which I don't really want to see yet. So queen e7 is a good move. Castling is the best. It's about half a pawn better for black. But I think that if I castle, it's kind of an autopilot type move. It doesn't really have a plan behind it other than get the king safe. My eventual thought was I do want to mate the white king. Instead, therefore, I'm going to shove my pawns up the board with h5, get a pawn storm, and mate them. My king is actually quite safe on e8, so there's no way that white can get to me. Now I played queen e7 after this h3 move, which I'm not sure about. We trade knights. I'm continuing my attack. White plays knight c3, and I now, instead of playing g5, which would also have been good, I thought rook h6 to g6 might be better. And this way I can always castle queenside or play king f8, and I'll still have a safe king. Takes. Now, maybe taking back is best, but I didn't want to lose my attack this early. If I take with the pawn, white can play queen b5, and then we have to trade queens. Instead, rook g6. White now played f4, which may not be the best move, because it allows queen takes h3. Although, to be honest, if white had tried to stop queen takes h3, the only move I saw was king h1, which is not the most natural move to be playing when you're already on the back foot and you have to make a king move, which doesn't really improve any other pieces. But they had to prevent me doing this move. Now I've got this devastating attack, and they take me trying to keep material equality. I could maybe continue with rook g3 and try to go for mate straight away, but I don't want to have to calculate anything with their pawn taking on b7, then queen b5 check, and all the rest of it. I took back. Queen f2, then h4, with the idea of potentially going knight to h5 and then to g3, but also if I play rook g3 soon, I'll be able to take back if they ever capture me with a pawn, which may be useful. And if nothing else, I can move my queen and play h3, going for the g2 pawn. So rook d1, again, it's kind of an automatic move. It doesn't really make the best of white's pieces. I come in, rook g3, knight e2, and then I shuffle the queen back. So my hope is they'll take my rook, I'll take back with the pawn on h2, piece. Take back with the pawn on h4, I should say. So I'm controlling h2, and then, I mean, maybe I can do stuff, but perhaps I should go rook c8. Then white might try getting some sort of attack like this, but I come into h2 with a massive attack. And I've got knight d5, knight g4, I've got check as well, forcing the king to a unpleasant square. And this generally looks pretty good. Although perhaps I shouldn't take the pawn this early in the game. But at the very least I have bishop b4. White's probably losing a fair amount. In fact, actually, they're getting mated, I think. Yeah, if rook d2, queen f2 check, and then king f1, queen f1 mate. And if bishop to c3 to block the check, I can capture it, and if and when white takes back, I go queen f2 mate again. So even with white's best moves, mate is not far off. So that was my instinct, and my instinct was right. Therefore, white chose rook fe1, which unfortunately for them gives me the queen with rook f3. The game is now practically over, but I thought I should try to finish the game fast. I don't want it lasting too long. g5, going for a opening up of the king by removing the pawns, and even though my knight is now attacked, and I can play like knight takes d5, my thinking was that I would actually mate faster by taking the pawn. I don't think I need the knight. Bishop takes, then f3. I think apparently f takes e3 is strongest, but this is still completely winning. I'm planning to take on g2 with the queen, checkmate, and if they push the pawn to g3, I can take with the bishop or the pawn, and I still mate. So when we trade, the king is now very close to being mated, and can you guess the move I played as black? So if you do queen takes bishop, to me that looks quite poor, because you're moving your queen away from the enemy king. And again, you're completely winning, but there are definitely better ways of playing. Queen takes e3, and I think h3 are the two strongest moves. Bishop g3 is also good, and my move, king d7, is also good, because you are planning to play rook to g8 and checkmate. White did resign here, because there's just no way to stop me. There's one last trick, though, which I would have done. Pawn takes c6, because if I were to go king e6 or king takes, then I get to feel the embarrassment of losing my queen and losing the game. So the correct move would simply be king c7, which I'd have played. And then I can play rook g8 check next turn and win in a few moves. So overall, that was, to me, that was a great win. It's one of the few times I have not made any inaccuracies according to the the Lichess computer analysis, although there were several of my moves that were the sort of second or third best. So I mean, I can't make all computer moves, but I got close in this game because I feel like white didn't really defend well, and once queen takes h3 is allowed, the game just sort of plays itself. I can easily win the game with sort of h4, rook g3, and then either play knight g4 or queen g4 depending on the moves whites had chosen. So my attack flowed very well, and this h5 move that I found early on, even though it's I think the fourth or fifth best move, it does have a nice plan to it, whereas the castling and the queen e7 moves didn't have quite as clear of a reason behind why you're playing them. So I hope you like this video, and my next one will probably be either tomorrow night or on Wednesday morning, because I will have played in the 4NCL team league on Tuesday night. So see you then, and bye.